Welcome to Hey, Great Shot. This is the Great Shot Podcast, a Cracked Racquets and Tennis Channel Podcast Network production. My name is Alex Gruskin. On tonight's show, we've got another edition of The Deciding Point, our weekly breakdown of everything that happens across the Division I college tennis world. Of course, here on Wednesday nights, we break down all the Division I men's action. But much like we said last night in breaking down the women's results with John J. Parsons, look, we're about a month away from the start of the NCAA tournament. Every result from here on in has tournament implications. Every dual match matters as such, as expected. We have a jam-packed show for all of you listeners tonight, and we are happy to be back live here on our Cracked Racquets YouTube channel. We've had to do a couple of pre-recorded episodes of late. We also do apologize for the fact that we had to push tonight's episode back an hour. Nevertheless, we are here to break down everything that's happened across the past week in the Division I men's college tennis world. And joining me on tonight's show to break it all down, as he does each and every week, is a man you know best as the forefather of the college tennis ranks formula predictions, never far from the listed UTR, one of the many dames to root for the Liberty Flames, a man with the dare to be a dirt bike extraordinaire. That said, don't confuse him for a car mechanic. It's the lean, mean, vegan machine, the Professor, Chris Halioris. Chris, hey, great shot. Welcome back to the show. We're live here tonight. You feeling good, my friend?
I'm feeling great that I'm here. Not so great based on the intro. I take full responsibility, folks, and apologize for the hour delay. Returned home from vacation. Thought the IT guy would be car mechanic and change the brakes, not knowing that when you have an electronic parking brake system, it's a little trickier. Blew it up. Now I have a brick in the garage. So, yeah, it's going to be a fun couple days ahead trying to figure out what I'm doing about that. But I mean, I'm here and we get to talk college tennis.
No, I'll tell you this. The website's functioning beautifully, and we'll give a shout out as always. Appreciate everything you do at collegetennisranks.com. I was tweeting out earlier, there are 15 players right now in the live rankings in the ATP Top 100 in singles. And it's much easier to find out which players have college tennis ties by using your website. I know one of our writers here at Cracked Racquets is planning to write a piece looking back at how many players with collegiate ties have been in the top 100, a decade ago, 2 decades ago, how that compares to now. And he was asking me, do I know of any sources? And sadly, I had to say, no, I don't know of any sources because there was no college tennis ranks in 2005. Chris was too lazy back then to be doing what he does now. And so, again, people who aren't, check out collegetennisranks.com. Check out everything Chris does. He makes our lives as college tennis fans so much easier. That said, I want to ask you what I asked Jay to start last night's show. Has it dawned upon you, Chris, that we're a month away from May, that we are now legitimately closer to the finish line than we are to the starting point of this 2023 spring season? Has that dawned on you yet? Because I was watching some matches this past weekend, and there was some urgency, and there was some disappointment, and there was some enthusiasm. And I just felt it a little more. Maybe I'm projecting, but are you feeling it?
Oh, I'm definitely feeling it because I started, as I was returning from vacation, I started looking at some of the results and things that have gone on over the last week. And more importantly, I started looking at some of these schools and checking their schedule as to what they had remaining. And I was like, they've only got 2 matches left. How is this possible? But, yeah, I mean, some schools have only a couple matches left before they hit, say, their conference tournaments, and I was baffled by. I was like, wow, we're that far into the season that we now have teams that are that have only a couple matches left. I couldn't even believe it, but well, obviously listening to and if you're the person that doesn't like to hear people watching TV when they drive, you can shut your ears right now. And watching the end of the Liberty match against Old Dominion today on my drive back, and I pulled up after the match was over. I said, "Oh, let me go check out the schedule." And I saw Liberty's got 2 matches left before conference tournament. And and I think the SEC's probably got 2 weekends left maybe before conference tournament. It is like we're well past the halfway point of the season. I mean, we've got, we're 80% of the way through, and it's hard to believe that we're almost there.
It's hilarious that you went through your process of checking schedules, and that's when the realization dawned upon you, because verbatim, and you'll never hear it because you watch matches, not listen to Crack Rackets podcasts on the road. It's literally what Jay and I said last night, is that I was scrolling a schedule, and it got to the point where not only could I see the matches remaining, but I was like, oh, conference tournament, April 16th to the 18th. Thanks for having that on there too as well. And that's when you're like, all right, we've reached the home stretch. And that's why today I want to focus not just on the headline results. Of course, last week we missed Texas TCU. That's where we're going to start our show. We're going to catch up on all of that. We had a lot of top 10 battles, a few conference upsets. Things are getting messy in both the SEC and the ACC. I want to spend some time there. I want to talk about a massive weekend for the Big 12 in terms of its NCAA tournament prospects, go through all the other highlighted results, talk about our latest rankings, where things stand in the top 16 hunt. Of course, look at a jam-packed week ahead, and to come full circle here, why do we talk about nearing the ending of this 2023 college tennis season? Every weekend matters. You don't want to miss out from here. You can catch our SEC broadcasts every Friday on ESPN and SEC Network Plus, ACC Friday, Sunday on ESPN and ACC Network Plus. We've got Big Ten Sundays on our Cracked Rackets YouTube channel as well. So we're so excited to highlight the rest of this season. Make sure, college tennis fans, you're tuning in, as you don't want to miss out on any of the action. Of course, you came here today to catch up on the things you might have missed. So let's get into everything. Of course, the last thing before we do is we got to give a shout out to all of you fans who tuned in, day out, week in, week out, make covering college tennis such an experience for us here at Cracked Rackets. Shout out to you fans, players, coaches who tolerate our nonsense. Also, a massive shout out to our friends at Ellesse. I mean, you're seeing a little more of my torso because we changed recording locations here at Cracked Rackets. I look that much better when I'm decked out in this Ellesse gear. I mean, again, if they can make these limbs look salvageable, imagine what they can do for you. You can learn about their expansive catalog by clicking on the link in the description to this episode. A massive shout out to our friends at Ellesse for their support of the Deciding Point, not just this week, but each and every week of the 2023 season. With all of that said, Chris, let's get into it. Again, a busy week in the Division I men's college tennis world. The place we obviously have to start is in Fort Worth, where we had a national indoor rematch of the championship. Texas traveling to Fort Worth in a non-conference match. They still implement that home and home system. They're trying to play at least twice a year. Of course, when you're a top 10 team, a top 10 loss really has no negative effect on your ranking. And so for both of those teams to play one another twice, given particularly that they only have 5 conference matches, it's advantageous, it's convenient, it makes sense that this remains on the schedule for both of these teams. And look, TCU entered the match undefeated, the prohibitive #1. I don't remember if it was last week or 2 weeks ago. I honestly think it was last week, but I'm hoping it was 2 weeks ago, where we said they were on a tier of their own. Guess what? The #1 undefeated national indoor championship winning team in the country, they get defeated, knocked off for the first time by Texas, who goes to Fort Worth. And Chris, they don't just win, they earn a 4-1 definitive victory over the Horned Frogs. Texas able to take a very tight doubles point. TCU's Gorsny and Vives remaining exceptional at the #3 spot. Always helps to have a reigning junior Wimbledon doubles champion there. Another 6-4 win for TCU at 3. Credit to P.Y. Bailey and CM Waldeep. It's a lot of firepower at that #2 spot. They've slowly but surely worked their way into form, 10-5 overall, but look, they get a massive 6-3 win over Jong and JPJ, and then you get a top 10 battle at the #1 spot. It comes down to a breaker. Again, I need a clinch to be done. I'll take Elliot Spizzirri every day of the week. Spizzirri, Harper, 7-6. They clinched the doubles point. Again, it wasn't just the doubles, though. You got to give credit to this Texas team that, wins first sets on 3 courts and then split sets on 2 of the other courts as well. And look, JPJ did his thing. 3-1 over Micah Braswell. I think long term for Texas, Braswell, who right now this season currently sitting at 7-8 overall in dual match play, he's still working his way back to health. And long term, again, that's the piece where if he's at his best now, this Texas team's at an even other level. But look, it was the big guns who delivered for the Longhorns on this day. You get a straight set victory from P.Y. Bailey, who's won his last 3 decisions. He is looking better with every passing match, 5-2 over Fomba. Then you get the revelation, Nevin Aramili, who Coach Burke has talked about for 3 years now consecutively, or 2 years now consecutively. Aramili now 7-1 at the number 6 spot, 1-4 over Tomas Jirasek. All right, we put 3 points on the board. If you're Texas, you know where number 4 is coming from. And as always, it's Elliot Spizzirri delivering 6-2 in the third over Fernley. Spizzirri right now 13-1 at the number 1 spot. He's the number 1 team player in the country. Texas looked like the number 1 team in the country, Chris. This is just I'm so angry with you. Let's just get it out of the way. How I let you talk me out of saying this is we've been saying they're a year away for 2 years now. This is why. When they're healthy, this is what this group can do.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it was to, your question. I think it was the pre-recorded episode on Monday of the Wednesday match last week that we had said TCU was the, kind of on a tier of their own. And then, because I was thinking about that as that match happened on that night going, boy, called that one totally wrong. And now TCU doesn't look like they're on a tier of their own, obviously, anymore. So yeah, no, great match for Texas. I mean, look, they're rolling on all cylinders right now.
They're back. Texas is back.
I think that, as you pointed out, and probably more just trying to get healthy more than anything else, Micah Braswell is the only spot that you even really look at there and go, I think that's a spot, if you're going to beat them, where you go, I think we got to win there. And then, but I mean, everywhere else, yeah, they're CM is playing great at 4, which we said was going to be key for them this year. Obviously, Spizzirri's the number 1 player in the country doing his thing. PY to go straight sets over Fomba at TCU. Yeah, things couldn't be going much better for them now, right? It's a good time to be in Austin there.
Well, 14-2 is this team overall. They lost at Columbus. Everyone loses in Columbus. They lost to TCU in the National Indoor Final after beating Michigan and Ohio State on back-to-back days 4-3 in the night session match at the indoors. That's the resume of a number 1 team in the country. And what's been so amazing about this Texas team, who, by the way, as we move on here, because it was a busy week in the Big 12. And, for Texas, not only do they get a big win over TCU, but they also back things up on Friday, right, with their victory over USC. And for Texas, they get a 4-1 win there. They take the doubles point. It's, straight set wins from Waldeeb, from Harper, and then guess who? Elliot Spizzirri with the clinch, 6-4 in the third over Stefan Dostanic from a set down. What's so fascinating about this Texas team, Chris, and this is where I want to wrap this discussion, and I'm curious if you think this is a burden, more of a burden or a blessing moving forward. They play close matches. Like, Spizzirri's a point on the board. One of Waldeeb or Harper is going to win on any given day. So that's 2, right? And Waldeeb 10-3 on the year, Harper 11-5. One of those 2 is getting a win, so that's 2. Where they find points 3 and 4 really is different every match. PY is starting to play better. Obviously, Aramili has turned into not just an option, but the option at the number 6 spot. And then again, if you're telling me a Braswell victory is a luxury, not a necessity for this Texas team, and he gets healthier over the next month, they haven't been that great in doubles. 26-17 overall, Chris. What is this team's biggest? Their biggest strength is Spizzirri. So what's your biggest question mark with this team? Is it literally the health of Braswell? Is it the fact that they do play 4-3 matches against, NC State and UCF? They're a whisker away from getting knocked off by Stanford as well, and what turned into a 5-2 match. Even here, yes, Waldeeb's up a break on Jong. Gorsny was up in the third set on Harper. They're playing good matches on the other sets at USC. This team plays close matches, but it dates back to 2021. What it comes down to for me is they just have that winning DNA. And you saw that in the wins again, TCU on the road. And then to beat USC doubles and 2 straight set victories in singles, like it's a damn good win.
Yeah, I don't. Normally, I would be, I think, concerned to your point about teams that play a lot of close matches. So, well, if you're going to play a lot of close matches, you get to the NCAA tournament, and one of them is going to jump up and bite you, and and you're going to get upset. But I don't think that's the case here. I mean, there are schools I think that probably play more close matches that I would be more concerned about than Texas. I think for them that their close matches just come because it's just a different guy every time. And sure, it could jump up and bite them, but I don't think it's not like it's going to jump up and bite them against a team outside of the top 8. And that's where I think the teams that I would normally have that concern with are susceptible. They're susceptible to somebody getting them. Now, granted, NC State almost did it, and that's a team outside the top 8. But I just think they're rounding into form, and they're just so solid right now that it's going to be really tough for that to happen with a team outside the top 8. I mean, it's going to be tough. I don't know how you keep them out of the final sight. And at that point, I don't really consider anything an upset. It's, all those teams can beat each other.
Yeah, and I want to get back to the USC side of things, but let's move over to TCU, who again dropped that match at home 4-1 to Texas. They bounce back though. They get a 7-0 win over USC, I believe on Friday. And I mean, look, it was a strong bounce back. 6-4 wins at the 1-3 double spots, and then 3 straight set victories. Fumba, Jong, Gruskin all getting the job done pretty quickly. You had Fernley with the 4-0 win over Dostanich. The interesting thing to note, 2 lineup things. A, JPJ up to the number 2 spot in that USC match. They also go with Vives at that number 6 spot. He goes 3 sets with Sam Rubel. So I still think for TCU, you have the question mark at 6. I don't think any of Jirasek, Vives, or Maxted have separated themselves thus far. But I bet if you're Coach Roditi, right, if you get 2, I don't know, what's his drink of choice? I feel like I should know what his drink of choice is at this point in our relationship, and it's kind of indicative of my lack of drinking that I don't know his drink of choice. But let's just say you get 3 beers in Coach Roditi.
That would be like a Dos Equis or
yeah,
or something.
Yeah, sure. you get 3 beers in him. He would tell you this loss was a blessing, right? He'd be like, "Hey, it's always good for the guys to get a little reality check come the start of postseason play."
Yeah, well, I think so. And the other thing is, I think even if it wasn't this one, he would probably also tell you, "Look, we have a home and home with Texas, which means we still have to play them in the conference match, and then." If all things go according to plan, we're going to play them in the finals of the Big 12 tournament. So that was already going to be 3 times after, beyond the indoors match they already played that they were going to have to play. And for them to think that they were going to come away from those 4 matches 4-0, that would have been a lofty goal. Now are they still going to win the next 2? Yeah, that's dead. Nobody's banking on that either. But yeah, I don't think I don't, obviously nobody wants to lose, but I don't think he's looking at it like that was a terrible thing. It was going to happen in all likelihood sooner or later here. And so you'd rather not do it at home. You'd rather hold your home court and maybe drop the one on the road, but it is what it is. And you take your loss and hopefully that, makes the guys hungrier and they move on. But there's nothing to worry about there.
No, the big thing was how they bounced back against USC again to get 4 straight set victories in singles and win doubles. And yeah, this team's fine. I think that's enough on our TCU analysis. For USC, they're 9 right now in the rankings. I think they're 10-5 overall on the season. They still have so much Pac-12 play still ahead. They have the Arizona match. They've got Stanford. They've got UCLA again at Cal. I'll tell you what, though. They're a learner TN short. I think that's fair to say. Again, that Strada or that Ludwig is playing for this past weekend. I mean, shout out to Coach Macy. That's just creativity. They're they're TN short. Like the thing is with how the Pac-12 now is, if they run the table in the conference, which I still think they're good enough to do because they are still very deep. It's just, again, what are the guaranteed points for this team? It's a little bit of a journey every time. They're competitive everywhere, though. That's why they're a top 10 team. But like they kind of have to run the table, Chris, right? In the Pac-12 to be top 8. Like, I don't know if they can afford a loss at Stanford or a loss at Arizona or even a loss in the conference tournament. They kind of need it at this point.
Yeah, because I mean, it's going to be tough to crack that top 8 without doing that. I mean, they've got a decent gap from 9 to 10, but trying to get in that top 8, they're looking at teams, Georgia or South Carolina. I mean, really, Georgia and Virginia are the only two within reach right now. And Georgia's got some tough matches coming. So that's a team they could get around. But to your point, if they drop the Stanford match or they drop, God forbid, any other match besides that, because that would probably hurt, Arizona, Stanford, the next two best ranked teams in the Pac-12. They dropped anything besides those, that would be devastating. It's going to be tough, I think, for them, just because there are so many more opportunities for those other schools to get points that actually count for, bigger point value wins than USC will have. USC is the top team in their conference, and they're looking down at Arizona at 18 as the next best school they can get points against. And they're looking at trying to catch Virginia, who's got North Carolina, who's better than that. You've got Georgia, who's got South Carolina, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Tennessee, all of those teams are better than that. So just too many opportunities for those schools to think that it's going to be too easy to get around. They need to run the table.
Yeah, very well said. And so, especially with South Carolina getting beat up, it's like, again, South Carolina, Kentucky, and Georgia could all get 3 top 8 seeds if they all finish on the pace they're on in conference play. If Tennessee makes a move, who knows? You feel like, again, the SEC, though, can get 3 top 8. Michigan, Ohio State, with what they did in their non-conference. The Big Ten gets 2. Certainly the ACC's probably getting 1 with Virginia. That's 6 right there off the top of the head. And I didn't even say TCU and Texas. So there's your quick 8. And TCU and Texas are locks, by the way. Those are 2. Pencil them in right now. They will be top 8 come the NCAA tournament. Yeah, it's an interesting spot right now for this USC team who, again, with every passing day, hopefully Leonard Etienne becomes eligible. You do feel like it becomes less and less likely, but I want to rapid fire through some other things that happened in the Big 12 because it was a big weekend for the Big 12 overall. And it wasn't just at the top of the conference. Obviously, TCU, Texas did their thing. And right now, by the way, Baylor is in an absolute battle. They're up 3-2 right now on Tulsa. I believe it's 5-all in the third set for Miladinovich. And I think Velt is either in a third set or he dropped his match in straight. So it's 3-all. I got to check that out. But absolute battle for the Baylor Bears. But look, there were a couple of Ohio State. There were a couple of Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, Baylor results I want to run through. First of all, let's start with Oklahoma. And again, we're going to do these quickly here, Chris. 4-0 over Tulsa, 4-0 over Middle Tennessee. Oklahoma now 10-7 overall on the year. Here's the thing. Martinez is 6-5 at the 1 spot. Hassan 7-1 at 2, but 9-5 overall in the year. Han's been great at 11-3, but Monty 6-6 overall on the year. They're 27-15 in doubles, but they've played 10 different combinations. I still feel like Oklahoma is not nearly as good as they should be on paper, Chris. And with these wins, though, they're going to get in the tournament now. This was huge for the Big 12, huge for Oklahoma.
Yeah, I mean, they've got good wins. It's just that, some of they can play really, really great, and then they just throw some duds in there. But absolutely, they have to be a tournament team. I'm not saying that it's going to happen. I mean, the problem for them is that with what's in the Big 12 for them, right? If they could lose to Baylor and Oklahoma State, those are going to be costly losses. Or Texas Tech. I mean, any of them. There's no harm in losing to Texas or TCU at this point. But everybody else, Nobody's ranked particularly high. Like outside of those schools, everybody else is down a little ways. So, I mean, Texas Tech right now being the highest, I believe, at 31. But that means a little bit of a deduction. So it could get costly for them. But I mean, with what they have on paper on that roster, they've got to be a tournament team. They have to find a way to make it.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, we knew 4 of the guys, but senior Justin Schladiger has been really good this year as well. And he stepped up and he had a big weekend in both of these matches. And look, it was a tough weekend for Middle Tennessee. They drop a match at Oklahoma. They also drop a match at Texas Tech 4-2. And again, you look at this Texas Tech team now, Chris, who obviously head coach Danny Whitehead unfortunately stepping down right before the season. They're 12-6 overall on the year. Texas Tech is right in that tournament hunt right now. You look for them in the rankings, Chris, they're freaking 31. It's like Oklahoma State, who, by the way, also got a big win here this weekend. They knocked out Tulane. Baylor, by the way, got a must-have win over SMU, and they kind of need tonight as well. But again, right now, Texas and TCU, they're top 5 in the country. Texas Tech's 31, Oklahoma State's 34, Oklahoma's 39, Baylor's 47. Here's where we're going to end this topic. Is the Big 12 going 6 for 6?
No.
Who's left out?
Baylor.
Really?
I mean, they're going to have to do something to get themselves.
Well, they have to beat. Do they have to beat everyone, not named Texas and TCU? If they go 3-2 in their conference matches, are they in?
Well, I guess I can take that back. They've got nothing. They've really only got 4 wins they're counting for anything right now. So if they can just get anything on paper here, like if they can get 2 wins, even if 2 of those wins are, they don't have to beat Texas or TCU. If they can get 2 wins out of the other 3 matches, so between Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech in conference play, I don't know that they even have to win all 3 of them. They've got to win 2 of them. But right now they're obviously, of the 6, they're the least likely. They're the ones with the most pressure on them to do it. Everybody else right now is sort of in the field having to work themselves out. Baylor's out having to work themselves in.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Again, 6 teams, not a ton of matches. Every match extraordinarily valuable in Big 12 play. That's enough time, though, on everything happening in the Big 12. Let's move over to a messy SEC. We're going to rapid fire through these results because there were a lot of them to discuss in the Southeast Conference, but obviously the place we have to start, South Carolina gets upset again. 2nd loss in the conference now for this South Carolina team as they're knocked off at home against Auburn. Here's the most amazing part. South Carolina took the doubles point. And yes, they were playing without James Story. And obviously Story's been exceptional for the team this year at the number 4 singles spot. But still, they won 3 first sets. Houle, Thompson, Samuel. They dropped this match 4-3. Tyler Stice with the massive 6-4 third set victory over Samuel. And then freshman Billy Blades for Auburn, delivering the goods at 6. He clinches 6-1 in the third over Lucas De Silva. I mean, yes, South Carolina was a man short. But here's the thing. With them losing this match, they now have 2 losses in conference play. And Chris, just a quick snapshot. Georgia's 6-0, but they've got the massive one. Kentucky coming to Athens this weekend. Florida's 5-2, South Carolina 5-2, Tennessee 4-2. Is the conference going to get 3 teams in the top 8? Are things wide open enough, or are things still too messy now?
You're going to laugh, but it's very possible they get 4.
Really?
What? Well, so I'll give you the what if here, and anybody can go do this. Go plug in Tennessee sweeping the weekend on the road this weekend.
And Tennessee, just for the record, who do they have this weekend? They have, I don't know who they have. They're on the road. Do they have what? Not Georgia. They have Kentucky and what?
Yeah, they've got. I'm sorry, they're not both on there. They've got Mississippi State and then at Kentucky, and then I think it's at Kentucky. They've got Mississippi State and Kentucky.
Weekend.
If you basically just go to the what if and plug in, take all the higher seeds except have Tennessee win both their matches, they're number 8.
And they have come on strong. They got massive wins this past weekend. We're going to talk about them in a second.
I still think it would be, for even if they push their way in, it probably takes one of the SEC folks out, but it's still possible. I mean, Texas and TCU are obviously locks. Ohio State has to virtually at this point be a lock with where they're at and just the points they've got. And Michigan is, pretty darn close to a lock as well. So that's 4 teams that aren't. And so now that means if we want to entertain the idea of 4 SEC teams, it means Virginia's out, which is possible depending on how the ACC plays. I don't think it happens. So I think it's, but 3 absolute possibility. Kentucky, South Carolina, even with those couple losses, their losses aren't all that costly. It's more about all the good wins they have. So Kentucky, South Carolina, those 2 teams should be in. Now, whether it's a Tennessee or a Georgia as the third, I think you get 3 for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, then with that in mind, give me one take on all of these results. We'll start with that aforementioned Auburn 4-3. We've done a lot of South Carolina talk of late, but what was your takeaway from that?
Tyler Stice, man. I mean, coming like Toby Samuel's not losing, and for Tyler Stice to come up big there, that was just huge.
Samuel had break points to break back for 5-all. Stice comes up with a couple of big serves. Yeah, look, Auburn's frisky, man. They can beat anyone on the right day. They show that again going on the road to beat South Carolina. Georgia, 5-2 over LSU. Trent Bride keeps getting wins. He's better and better. Quinn gets a 3-set win, albeit in a breaker over Latinovich. Perez Pena, another straight set win at 6. Georgia's starting to find a match calculus, Chris. I would say it's doubles, 2, 3, and 1 more.
Yeah, right now, and Pena's looking good for them right now. So
I should say 2, 3, 6, and 1 more. And sometimes it's doubles, sometimes it's Kreuter, sometimes it's Quinn.
Yeah, but their doubles they're looking better in doubles, and yeah, I think we've got to catch some of the bigger competition here and see what happens.
Yeah, again, it's consistent. By the way, LSU solid. Like it's a pretty solid group for Coach Brian here in his first year. Kentucky 4-3 over Mississippi State, 4 over Mississippi.
Yeah, that was a little scary one for them with Mississippi State. Mississippi State didn't play 2 of their top 3 singles players. And granted, I think it was 4-2 when they clinched. But that's a tight match to go 4-3 against Mississippi State without 2 of their top 3 guys. So I think that's a little bit concerning, for Cedric and Matt Gordon there that it was that tight, but hey, you find a way. It doesn't matter. You got to play the team in front of you. It doesn't matter if they pulled 2 guys or not. You got to beat them, and they did.
My thing is, Ianni just hasn't played well so far this year. He's just been fine. Like he's played 500, and so. By the way, you're getting some criticism when you say Ohio State top 8. Nathan Campbell, Archit said, "Are you sure Ohio State's a top 8 lock?" I agree with you. Just to address the comments real quick.
There is 0 chance they're not.
Yeah, so 0. Sorry, guys. Yeah, they just all the non-conference wins. But no, I mean, again, like looking for this Kentucky team, I think the fact that they were able to get these victories, Ianni loses twice. Like, obviously, Lapadot's still doing his things. Draxel's back in form. Usually one of the freshmen, which we said was going to be the recipe, Cosnay or Weeks, plays well on any given day. I don't think Kentucky's found their ceiling yet. That would be my takeaway thus far for this team. Is I don't think we've seen the day where all 6 guys click in singles, and we saw that happen at the NCAA tournament. I do think this team has that sort of ceiling. Again, it just I haven't quite seen all of that click yet. But we talked about Tennessee a little bit earlier. I mean, talk about 2 massive victories: 4-1 over Columbia. They then get the 6-1 win over A&M. You know, this Tennessee team, which I believe is 14-6 overall now, 4 of their 6 losses were 4-3. And it's like, again, 4-3 to Wake Forest, 4-3 to Auburn, 4-3 to Georgia. I mean, the big thing when I watch this team is Joe Monday is one of the 5 best players in the country. He gets big victories this weekend, straight sets over Shakhtar, was down to Michael Zhang, which is a credit to Michael Zhang. But Bicknell gets a couple of victories. Mitsui back at 4 is back to being the Mitsui we saw last season. The double switch they made, Harper Monday, Hud Mitsui, they feel like they can win those 2 flights every time, although Prada and Diaz are getting better at that number 3 spot. Took them 3 months. Tennessee, dare we say, Chris, are you ready to say it? Are they back?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm still not sure. I think to me, the swing guy on this team right now is Blaise Bicknell. I mean, it was just a really slow start for him. And look, we all know he's a better outdoor player than he is indoor player, but it wasn't just that. I mean, there were just too many other things that just weren't clicking for him. And if he's going to produce, I mean, and they've been playing, like you said, all the losses as 4-3 losses, getting the wins they're now getting, and he got a couple wins this weekend. If he's going to be the guy that we saw him be 2 years ago, yeah, they're going to be really tough to beat, because I don't see Monday losing very many matches at all. I don't see Mitsui losing a lot of matches at 4 if they're going to play him there with Blaise at 3. And if Blaise is winning, yeah, then they're like, okay, guys, let's either doubles or one other match. Yeah, they're starting to click.
Yeah, well said. Well, let's move on to Florida, who gets 2 wins here this weekend. The Gators, 6-1 over Auburn. They also get a 6-1 win over Arkansas. 10-7 overall, number 19 in the country. 5-2 in conference play, Chris. Yeah, they had the weird loss to Alabama. No doubt about that. But man, they've played themselves back into top 16 contention. Beneto's getting healthier. Ned's slowly finding his format 1. I'm starting to buy on the stock of this Florida team. Maybe not this year, but next year, 2024, I like the core they have down in Gainesville.
Yeah, it's definitely a good core. I mean, obviously, Nev's not going to be around, or Lucas Greif, but yeah, they've
Neto, Braswell, Olakowski, Tokat, and Arundorn, like that's a good core to build around. Grant,
yeah, absolutely, they've absolutely got a good core there, and yeah, it is sort of a weird resume for them with losses to Alabama and Mississippi State, but then that's after what Auburn did against South Carolina, for them to beat Auburn 6-1. I mean,
3 straight set wins, 2, 3, and 5. Like they got the job done.
Yeah, just a great win for them there. So yeah, I think they are probably that prototypical young team, because they are playing a lot of young guys, right? You're playing Tokac, Orlikowski, Braswell, all freshmen. Bonetta, a sophomore. Grant, a guy that hasn't had a ton of. He's been there, but just hasn't played a lot of singles action. And you sort of expect the great one match and then not so good the next one, that just kind of the growing pains you get out of young guys or guys that haven't played a lot, and that's what we're seeing. They've definitely got the talent.
Yeah, well, you're our senior SEC correspondent, so let's play the game. Top 8, top 16 in the tournament or not. Other results to note from the SEC: LSU 4-3 win over Alabama, Texas A&M 4-3 win over Alabama, UCF 5-2 over Arkansas. Tough week for Alabama and Arkansas. But again, Chris, you tell me, in the tournament or not. Or top 8 seed, Georgia.
I mean, that's probably the cut line, but I'm going to say yes.
All right, we rapid fire. Kentucky.
Yes.
Florida top 16.
No.
South Carolina top 8.
Yes.
So then Tennessee top 8 has to be a no, right?
Yeah, I think they're going to be a non-tile. They'll be a 9 through 16, I think.
They almost fell into not top 16 show. They are non-top 16 category, excuse me. No longer. They are back in the top 16 hunt, which is very impressive again. A&M in the tournament, 11-8, but they're back in, right?
Yeah, they're in. Easy.
Yeah, Mississippi State top 16.
Top 16.
A&M top 16?
No.
Ole Miss in?
Yes.
Auburn in?
Yes. And Auburn right now is a top 16.
But long term, yes or no?
Uh yeah, I think so. I mean
Wow.
that South Carolina win is just going to age really well for them.
All right. Bama into the tournament.
No.
LSU.
That's that's the cut line. I mean,
So
you know,
no Arkansas or Vandy, and
yeah,
Vandy's fighting the 500 rule. They're 6-12. They're in trouble.
yeah, Bama,
Arkansas.
Arkansas, Vandy, I think are probably all out, barring just they those. Well, Vandy's out. Period. Bama and Arkansas would need to come up with something huge down the stretch in the SEC or big tournament win. LSU is probably the bubble team right now. I mean, they are the probably the number, and so for
They're a
them,
year away. They're a year away.
yeah, I mean it's yeah, I mean if you're the bubble, it's not like you're expecting to do big things if you make the tournament, but I think they are going to be really really close and they're just going to need a good, they're going to need a good win in the SEC tournament in all likelihood. They've still got chances. I mean, they get Auburn at home. That's a good chance for a big upset for them. They've still got I think a non-conference match with Tulane that would provide some points. So, and then they'll get points for wins if they can win. But their road matches at Arkansas, at Ole Miss, those would both give decent points. I think though, I think they find a way and they probably make it.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you heard it from our senior SEC correspondent, Chris Halioris. Now, let's move over to the ACC because here's the exercise I want to do. We're not going to go over every result that we saw for all these teams because there was a lot of ACC action last week. Most of the top seeds held firm. Now, we will spend a second on that NC State Louisville match. Louisville coming back, sweeping the top three, straight set win at 6. They earn a 4-3 win to end NC State's undefeated run in conference play. But here's the question I want to ask you. Who's the second best team? Who's the third best team in the ACC? Because we know Virginia's the clear-cut number one. They're undefeated again in conference play. They've been pushed but not tested so far, and they've earned that right. Here's the thing. Outside of that right now, you look at the current ITA rankings. North Carolina's 13, Wake is 16, Florida State is 17, Duke right now at 21, NC State at 23. I think those are the 5 teams who are in a tier of their own in the ACC, who you'd say you all have a shot at getting a top 16 seed. Now, how easy will that be with the SEC congestion at the top? Will there be room for more than 3? I don't know if there will be. I think the ACC gets 3 top 16 seeds. I think Virginia's a lock. And I ask you, Chris, start with one team of the next of the group. Who is your next pick to say they're a lock to be top 16 and why?
North Carolina. I just think I think they're just still a little step above the rest of that group that's chasing. I mean, obviously everyone's chasing Virginia, but I feel like they've got the edge there. They do have probably a little more work to do because Wake's actually got more depth, more
Tennessee,
quality in the
Texas,
depth of their wins, but I still think North Carolina is the second best team.
They have a win over Florida. They have a win over Harvard. They have a win now. They've only dropped one match in conference play. They're 6-1 overall. Their losses to UVA. Here's the thing, by the way. They still have to play NC State, Wake Forest, Duke, and Florida State. So a lot of big ones left on the schedule. I'll also say they haven't had Cernock that much. He's been in and out with some injuries. 9-5 at the one spot. Segerman 8-5 overall in the year in dual match play. That they've been winning without those guys. That Luke Jansen has looked so good at the number 3 spot. Carl Poling has fit in like a hand in a glove on this UNC campus. And, again, they haven't had Zap that much either, but they're finding ways at the number 6 spot, 12-4 overall. Obviously, with Trip Phillips as your coach, you're always going to be good at doubles. I agree with you. The other thing, by the way, NC State, Wake Forest, Duke, Florida State, all those matches in Chapel Hill for UNC. So I agree. I think they have to be the clear-cut number 2 team. The rankings agree with you as well. They're currently number 13 overall. Here's the fascinating question. Who's your third, Chris? Because I have an inclination that I think is going to surprise you. but I'm curious what you would pick. And again, the remaining teams: Duke, who's 6-1 in conference play, their only loss is Virginia. Wake's 5-1 in conference play, their only loss is Florida State. Florida State is 3-2 in conference play. Their losses are NC State and Virginia. NC State 5-1. Their only loss is Louisville. All these teams pretty much of this five-sum, North Carolina, Duke, Wake, NC State, Florida State, all but Florida State really has to play one another. Florida State, just Duke and UNC left. So again, it's a fascinating proposition. 5 top 25 teams. I think we agree UNC's pretty clearly top 16. Who's 3 on your list?
Now, are you asking of where they're going to finish in the rankings, or just who? Because
no, both.
Okay, so I honestly think the team that's got the best chance to finish third in the rankings for the host spot is probably Wake Forest, and that's strictly from a math perspective, because the loss to Virginia is going to hurt almost nothing, assuming that they lose the match, right? And they've got some big chances for wins, but that's not the team I'm going to go with. If you're asking me, I would lean to either saying the winner of Duke, Florida State, or I'm just going to say outright, I think it's Duke.
So this is one of those moments where I'm reminded how much time we spend with one another, because the answer is so fucking clearly Duke. Like, I couldn't agree with you more. And the thing we have talked about least, that we should be talking about way more, Pedro Rodinez is like 15-1 at the 2 and 3 spots this year. He might just be the best freshman in the country. And you throw him, Johnson, Zhang, that is a damn good top 3. And I think the Krugs have been playing well. Michael Heller's there in a pinch. They play pretty solid doubles this season down at Duke. This Duke team's good. And you know what they've been doing, Chris, very quietly? They've been beating who they've supposed to beat. They go beat Louisville. They go beat Notre Dame. This weekend, they go beat Georgia Tech 6-1. And, that's with Martin beating Johns. But Rodinez gives Martin, who's Martin play doubles with? The other one. McDaniel. He gave McDaniel the business at 2. A lot of help you were there, Chris. Thanks. Yeah, sorry. You're still thinking about the car. But like the Krugs, again, they were dominant as well. Duke is fucking good this year, Chris. Like, we have not, after a bad National Indoor weekend, just a bad first match, because I know they bounced back to beat Auburn, but a bad first match, they found their form. Like, this Duke team is very good. Let me ask you this, though. Who's the second highest ranked player in the ACC right now? We know ACC Antoine Cornette-Chauvin is 1. Can you guess who's 2?
In the actual rankings?
Yeah, in the singles rankings right now. Who's the second highest ranked singles player? Because the answer will shock
Garrett
you.
Johns.
Melios Efstathiou, who's currently 11th. Yeah, he's second highest ranked player in the ACC. Garrett Johns is at 17. I know, that surprised me too. And I will say this. I really like watching NC State play. Like, they've got a lot of good guys everywhere. I'm blanking on who the lefty is at 4, Von Sambeek, who's playing really good ball here this year. Like, everyone's slowly rounding into form for that NC State team. I think they're the deepest of this group. But I really of the remaining 4, I think UNC's the actual deepest. I would then put NC State as the second deepest. Florida State's got weird pieces. I just don't get how it fits. I see the same thing with Wake, by the way. We've been saying that for 7 years, like since the Frisokos days. It's been Tachi, Maroney, Sid the Man. Like, sometimes, it turns out Kungu is still alive, and who knows, maybe he's still on the roster this year, and we're going to see him come May. God, we haven't made a good Razard Kungu joke in a while, so I'm glad we got that in.
Gadgiev, man. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. But I agree. Like, here's the crux of it, and they still have NC State, Wake Forest, who by a UNC and Florida State, and all but that UNC match, 3 of the 4 at home for Duke.
Yeah.
Duke's, I think they're going to get the third top 16, Chris. And that we agree means it's not a hot take.
Yeah. No, it's probably not a hot take, but like you said, they've got the big matches outside of the North Carolina match. They've got everything else at home. So, so big matches coming with Wake Forest and NC State coming in. So, I mean, that's going to tell a lot. But then, the regular season finale, Florida State at Duke, that's gonna be probably big even for ACC conference tournament seeding, and that could go a long way to determining who is going to be that third team to probably try to grab a top 16 seed.
It's very clearly the best group since Cunha, Carlton to here, like since those early 2010s. I mean, this group is good, and I'm looking forward to see them through postseason play. I want to see them go on a road in a Sweet 16 and play a TCU or play a Texas and just see how they hold up, because I think this group is good enough to do some damage on the right day. And again, they played really well this weekend. Yeah, I don't like that we agree, but those would be your two guesses. If they're going to get 3 top 16s, Virginia, UNC, and we both agree Duke, that's scary. Sorry, Duke, you're not getting a top 16. Hate to tell you, that's a massive jinx.
I think the road, the on the road for a round, against the top 16 is rough for them. I think you and I are probably in line. The bottom of the lineup is playing better now than it probably has all year, but they're still like doubles in their top 3. And then you just don't know where out of 4, 5, and 6, whether they're going to need one of them, 2 of them, and it gets questionable. Some of the teams that are just a little ahead of them are super solid at 4 or 5 spots, where we're looking at 3 here. And I think that's the question mark, but definitely they're still capable of being a top 16.
All right, I like it. Well, then with that in mind, let's run through the rest of the results we saw on the weekend. Again, you get one sentence of a take. Ohio State goes on the road, 4-0 over Illinois, 4-1 over Northwestern.
I mean, solid. It's not in Columbus, so it's good. I expected them to win, but it was pretty convincing.
4-0 over Illinois was the particularly impressive one. Nebraska, Wisconsin, 5-2 wins over Michigan State. How likely is it those two teams can get into the NCAA tournament? Any chance, or do they have to go beat a Northwestern, Illinois, Michigan, or Ohio State?
With that for Nebraska and
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin,
I think State got eliminated with these losses.
Yeah, Michigan State's out. I don't like Wisconsin's chances. They're gonna need
They gave Michigan a scare this weekend.
Yeah, they're gonna need to pull something off. Nebraska actually is their bubble right now, so I think there's a good chance for them if they can come up with another win to give points to them. And they've even got, the good thing for them is even the 9th win for them that's not counting yet, but will by the time the NCAA tournament selection comes around. They've already got decent points there, so they're in good shape. Wisconsin doesn't even have 9 wins, so they need a lot of help. Much more likely for Nebraska.
I'm not saying others don't work hard. No one works harder than Sean Mamie. And it's so great to see his Nebraska program has success because, again, blood, sweat, tears. So shout out to Sean. Shout out to Danny, too. That's a really solid Wisconsin squad.
They've got upside. When I say that they've got nothing out there, that just means any points move them up. So there's a chance, but they're both going to need, what they really, the odds of beating in Ohio State or Michigan aren't great.
No, they need to beat Illinois or Northwestern.
But an Illinois or Northwestern win for them would be huge.
Yeah, and they did it last year, so it's at least possible. All right, UVA 5-2 over Harvard. One sentence, go.
It's what we expect. They're coming around.
Yeah, Virginia's back. UCSB, 26th, I want to say, in the rankings. Shout out to Max Kohler, my guy, and the entire team as well. 4-3 over Cal. Pepperdine also gets a 4-3 win over Cal. That's the first blink for Coach Quinton's Cal Bears team, which has been really good, but those are just good matches, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, they've always made good use of the portal. They've got some really good guys there. Philip Jordan and a couple others that they've transferred. But yeah, 4-3, that 4-3 win over Cal was huge for them. They're solidly in the field.
VCU 4-2 over Cornell.
A little, that great win for VCU. A little surprising for me, honestly. I kind of thought Cornell might pull that off. So absolutely great win for VCU. They're solidly in the field.
Washington 4-3 over Utah. Utah 4-1 over Oregon.
Disappointing loss for Utah against Washington. A huge win for Washington. I mean, for Raheem and Mitch Stewart there, who played there. Yeah, I mean, absolutely a great win for them, a much needed win to keep, any hopes alive for them of making the tournament. They're sort of back in the bubble discussion. They're outside, but they're in reach now.
Very well said. Currently sitting at number 48. Tulane up to number 43, 4-2 win over Tulsa.
I think for me, the take on that, I mean, Tulane, we knew had been coming on. They had one little, hiccup in there against San Diego, but they had been coming on. I was just a little disappointed in Tulsa. Now I know you're telling us, how well they're playing in the Baylor match that may or may not be over at this
Baylor
point.
just won, by the way.
Okay.
Baylor did take the win, which God did they need it. And hey, now you're back in the tournament hunt like they
Yeah.
really are.
And Tulsa just, I mean, my take is Tulsa just hasn't found the way. They seem to just keep coming up on the short end of all of these matches. A tough year for them.
Yeah. Last one, USF 4-3 over FAU.
I mean,
Go Bulls. I figure that's what you're gonna say.
Yeah, I don't have much to say about that one.
Yeah. All right. Well, then, with all that in mind, folks, that's your past week in the Division I men's college tennis world. Of course, we did have an upset, so I imagine we have some movement in our Cracked Racquets rankings, and we'll unveil those for you all now. Indeed, a new number one for the first time this season. Texas ascends to the number one spot off of victories over USC and TCU. Now, TCU doesn't drop far. They're at 2. Ohio State, Michigan holding firm at 3 and 4. Kentucky 5. Welcome back to the top 6. Virginia. South Carolina 7, Georgia 8, USC 9, UNC 10. This looks exactly like my rankings, Chris. The only difference being I had Tennessee in the 10 spot, just coming off of their wins over Columbia and A&M. But I'm fine with UNC 10, and I feel good about directionally about these rankings. If those were my top 8 seeds and the season ended right now, that would work for me.
Yeah, I have no issues, but the top 7 are exactly my top 7, and then I just sort of have 8, 9, 10, same 3 teams, but jumbled in a different order.
Yeah. Here's the real interesting thing, and I had this conversation with Jay. On the women's side, it really is down 18 teams for the 16 host sites. Like, it's really down to 18 teams. The men's side still feels wide open. Like, USC, they're probably a lock, but not a lock of locks. Columbia, Harvard, you feel like one of those for sure is going to get it. Mississippi State, Tennessee, Auburn, Florida, all still alive in the mix. We just had the ACC discussion. You throw in teams like Arizona, Stanford, Illinois on the outskirts of that conversation, and their Georgia win continues to age better and better. I don't know, where are we at? Like 24 teams for those top 16 spots? Like, it doesn't feel like we can narrow it down quite yet.
Yeah, I feel like I probably go about 22 or so. I think I go down to around I'll go down to Duke at 21.
No, I say we go to 23 in NC State. That feels about right.
Well, what I was going to say is I'll go as you interrupted right when I was about to get there. I'll go to Duke at 21 and then add NC State.
No, don't you dare disrespect Illinois like that.
I don't think Illinois gets there. I don't think A&M gets there, and I don't think Northwestern gets there. But there's just too much meat on the bone left possible for NC State to rule them out. The problem with the Illinois Northwestern deal, right, is they have to beat either Michigan or Ohio State, right?
And they already lost to Ohio State. Okay, I accept that the premise of that argument, even if I disagree with the assessment, because I think we would both agree Illinois has the ceiling of a top 16 team. We saw that at the indoors, no doubt. But okay, I accept your premise. Yeah, we'll say 22 or 23 for 16 spots. That feels like a good place to be as we turn the calendar towards April. And as we turn that calendar quickly, just so you know, computer rankings, we've referred to them a lot. Texas 1, Ohio State 2, TCU down to 3, Kentucky 4, Michigan 5, South Carolina 6, Virginia 7, Georgia 8, USC 9, Columbia 10. Let's look ahead, though, to the week ahead. And we've alluded to some of these matches, but Chris, it's spicy. I have 4 matches or 4 sets of matches I consider tier 1 caliber, which means clear your schedule, cancel your date. Sorry, wife, sorry, significant other. We're not hanging out. I got to watch matches. Of these 4 trips, what entertains you the most. You can only pick one. And you're not allowed to pick Kentucky, Georgia, Kentucky at Tennessee, because we'll talk about that in a second. USC at Arizona, the NC State Wake trip to UNC, or the NC State Wake trip to Duke. You can only follow one closely. What are you picking and why? And is USC Arizona tier 1 worthy? Because I think it is.
I was going to say the one I'm following is USC Arizona, just because A, it's going to be a great match. B, it has to be the chippiest of all of the matches.
100%. It's going to get feisty. It's going to get, I mean, again, there's history between these two groups, and you just can't fake that. Now, look, Kentucky, Georgia, Kentucky, Tennessee. I mean, if Tennessee's as good as they have looked over the past month, they have lost 4-3 matches. Eventually something breaks their way. I'll tell you what, if they beat Kentucky, now 4 teams have 2 losses in SEC play. And if Kentucky beats Georgia, again, it's just chaos continuing in the SEC. What's Kentucky's record this weekend?
Man, it's too easy to say 1-1 for them to go on the road and win both of those. I don't know. I honestly don't know how they do it. And I've been so good and so kind to Kentucky all year that I'm going to have to catch flack for this. I'm going 0-2.
Wow.
I mean on the road in the SEC is just, it's no joke. I mean,
let's do some in-depth analysis, because we are capable of this instead of just surface level. Swing matchup in Georgia, Kentucky. Is it Lapadop versus Bride at 3? Or is it just that simple?
I mean, that's certainly going to be a big match. And I think Kentucky's got to win that match. I kind of like the way the things have been going. You've got to favor Georgia in doubles. And I mean, how good is like Quinn Draxel going to be? I mean, that's a match.
Kreuter Body, 2 guys who started out on fire and have cooled off a little bit.
But to your point, like Ianni hasn't been great, but he's also, he's one of those
guys. He can win any match if he catches fire.
Yeah, we know the talent is there, and I think it's just that, like, if he really gets into it, he could just be like, he can beat anyone, and so that's going to be a huge match for me. I don't know. The thing though that's got me a little bit worried about Kentucky coming down the stretch right now is, even though I love Kosnay and I love the upside in weeks, the production recently hasn't been there. And so I think that's going to be, and now that you're going on the road for 2 of the biggest teams,
MPP, the contrast there, oh, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's a tough match, but the crowd, I mean, you can only imagine what the crowd in Athens is going to be like. And you got the 2 freshmen at 5 and 6 for Kentucky playing. I know they've won road matches, but look, winning that match indoors at Louisville, there's like 12 fans. I mean, there's nowhere to sit in there. It's not going to, even if they had it packed, there's just bleachers on the side of an indoor court. That's all you get. Athens is going to have, 500 people or more packed in the stands. It's going to be crazy. I think it's going to be a tough place to go. So if they pull it off, awesome. But I mean, clearly they've got to be the underdog on the road.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're both really good matches. Mitsui Body the next day, Monday, Quinn. I mean, Ethan Quinn's going to get his money's worth here this weekend, taking on Draxel and Monday. Again, give me straight predictions the rest of the way. USC at Arizona.
USC.
NC State, Wake, or what's UNC's record at home against Wake and NC State?
2-0.
Duke versus NC State and Wake?
1-1.
Who wins? Say it.
I think NC State beats them.
All right. South Carolina at Ole Miss.
Oh, South Carolina.
Upset alert.
No.
Upset alert.
I mean, Ole Miss I've said it a million times. It's a hard place to play, but my goodness, South Carolina's they've got to get it back on the right track here.
Mississippi
That's a
State
match they would.
Bulldogs at Tennessee.
Tennessee,
Florida at A&M.
A&M.
That match is going to be
That
freaking feisty.
that's going to be a great match. But again, A&M, that's a good home court advantage for A&M. It's obviously not a short trip for Florida. Yeah, and a lot of young guys. So I'll lean the home team.
Yeah, and there are a lot of other good ones. Oklahoma's and Oklahoma State make their Texas TCU trip. UCLA's also got a critical Arizona swing. Stanford at Utah, that screams a little upset alert. Cal at Utah as well. Michigan versus Michigan State. If you get Styler versus Ozan, I mean, hello. Notre Dame at Louisville. Again, Clemson at Miami has all sorts of NCAA implications. A lot of good stuff on the schedule this week, folks. And of course, we will be back next week to break it all down once again as we continue to get excited for the home stretch of this 2023 college tennis season. With all of that said, of course, a shout out to our dear friends at Ellesse for their continued support of this show day in, day out. A shout out to all of you fans as well, whether it be Archid, I saw Nathan, I saw Scotty B, all the usual cast of characters. We appreciate all of you who tune in live, all of you who make covering college tennis such a joy for us here at Cracked Racquets. With all that said, before we wrap today's show, Chris Halioris, any final thoughts?
I'll give you a couple I think that are going to be interesting that aren't on our top 20 watch, but they're good bubble matches for the weekend. Tulane SMU. That's
on my list.
Yeah, that's a right in there bubble match.
Middle Tennessee at Memphis.
Yeah, UCF at Memphis. UCF's trying to they're up to 51 now, trying to climb in there. Memphis is in right now, and then that UCLA Arizona State. Both teams just inside, but easily. Like Arizona State's right inside the bubble, so that to me is another one. And then SMU USF. That conference has a bunch of teams with Tulane, SMU, USF, UCF, Memphis. They're all gathering right around that bubble number. So those are all big matches.
Yeah, I love to hear it. And again, we'll have coverage of all of it Friday, SEC. Cross court cast available on ESPN and SEC Network Plus. We've got our ACC cast on Friday and Sunday, Big Ten on Sunday on our Crack Rackets YouTube channel as well. A shout out to our super producer Daniel Westoff, who makes it all happen. But with all that said, again, it's a busy weekend. As we learned on this episode, Chris Halioris isn't going anywhere. He doesn't have a car, so he'll be tuned in to all the action. I'll be tuned into all the action. We're sure all of you college tennis fans will be as well, and we will see you next week here on this show to break it all down. With all of that said, for the fantastic Professor, Lean Mean Vegan Machine, Chris Halioris, our super producer, Daniel Westoff, our friends at Ellesse, and from all of us here at both Crack Rackets and the Tennis Channel Podcast Network, I'm your host, Alex Gruskin. Chris, what do we tell our listeners?
Hey, great shot.
And we will see you all next week. Thanks as always, everyone.